Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus addressed this parable to those who were convinced of their own righteousness and despised everyone else. Two people went up to the temple area to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other was a tax collector. The Pharisee took up his position and spoke this prayer to himself. O God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I pay tithes on my whole income. But the tax collector stood off at a distance and would not even raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast and prayed, O God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, the latter went home justified, not the former. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
As Joyce announced before Mass, I'm Father Michael. For those of you who do not know me, I'm the newest of the solemnly professed monks at Mount Angel here. And I entered as a priest, so already I'm here helping at the parish as Father Ralph has gone on vacation. I was here in 2001 to 2008 as a seminarian, and when we began theology in 2003, this old guy rolled up from Montana, Stu Long. And I was born in Montana, but we moved to Seattle when I was 11. He was born in Seattle, but moved to Helena when he was 2. We got on pretty good. We did ministry together our first year in theology. Many of you may have seen the movie. Unfortunately, the movie is not true to history. They get a few things right. Like, he was cocky and quick to anger and a fighter. So it was kind of fun to have him in class. And he was always ready for an encounter and usually looking to help someone if he could. This was his MO. He wanted to help others. So much so that one time, and he related this to me later on as he was suffering his illness, that he saw a little one who was suffering and made a prayer. He said, Lord, if I can relieve this suffering in this little one, whatever I can do. And he related that to me. He said, maybe that's why I got this. Halfway through our theology, he started slowing down. And he was diagnosed with inclusion body myositis. It's like MS or ALS, progressively takes one's life as they get weaker and weaker. It was in that condition that the seminary did not recommend him for holy orders. But Bishop Thomas and Helena prayed about it and felt called to ordain Stu. I was there as a deacon, and as a deacon, I was sitting next to Bishop Thomas for the ordination. And at the end of the ordination, Bishop Thomas gave the 2 guys that were ordained the opportunity to speak to the people. It's a rare occasion happening at an ordination, but these 2 guys, both of them, were converts to the Catholic faith. They were baptized on the very same day in the very same year, and then they came together as classmates in Helena. And so Father Bart, he was the first to get up and thanked his family and his friends and the bishop and God, and just like normal, right? Father Bart wrote a book recalling his experience with Father Stu. It's called That Was Father Stu. If you want the real story, to hear Stu's voice, I highly recommend it. It's put out by Ignatius Press. This is what Father Bart recalled that day as Father Stu stood up on his crutches and began to address the people, most of whom in that first section in the huge Cathedral of Helena weren't even Catholic. He said, "I stand before you a broken man. My disease is disabling. It'll continue to progress, and barring a miracle of Christ, it will claim my life. But I trust that Jesus knows what he's doing and will give me the strength to carry on. May the struggles of this disease help me and help all of us to live the way we should have been living all along. Sometimes we need things like this in our lives to help us make those changes and decisions to make us better, to become the people God has created us to be." And then, Father Bart does not recall this, but I do, because this is the part that made the biggest impression on me. He pulled out this little book, Trustful Surrender to Divine Providence. And he said, "I want to share a story with you about St. Francis." He said, St. Francis of Assisi was afflicted by an illness which caused him great pain. One of his followers said to him, "Ask our Lord to treat you a little more gently, for it seems to me he lays his hand too heavily upon you." Hearing this, the saint gave a cry and addressed the man in these words: "If I did not think that what you have just said comes from the simplicity of your heart without any evil intention, I would have no more to do with you, because you have been so rash as to find fault with what God does to me." Like St. Paul, he stood before us, his life being poured out like an oblation. And Father Stu, as his illness progressed, became more and more powerful in his witness, in his priesthood, as his life became more and more conformed to Christ, who laid down his life for us, to Christ, who gives himself to us in the Eucharist. And he said, "I think this is the best thing that has ever happened to me, because it's humbled me." I told you he was a very proud man, very strong, bold fighter. But this humbled him. It gave him a new perspective on life. And from his struggle, from his suffering, in that humility, people were able to relate to him. People flocked to his nursing home. So much so that a queue started to form every day outside of his room for people coming to him for counsel and confession. He had a sign on his door that said, "Father Stu," and then you turned it over and said, "Do not disturb hearing confessions." It's from that place of humility that God works in our lives. Most of us go through the day in and day out, like the Pharisee. We might not despise others, like the gospel says, but there we are judging others and comparing ourselves to them. making ourselves feel better as we look around, trying to make sense of things, trying to make ourselves feel better as we walk through this world. But in the end, that leaves us frustrated. We'll never be satisfied because things aren't according to our will. People don't live up to our expectations. But as we take the posture of the publican, the tax collector, just like we do every time we start the Eucharist and pray, "Have mercy on me, a sinner," as we begin our day in this way, so our perspective is shifted. We put ourselves in right relationship with God, recognizing I am a miserable sinner. I can do nothing on my own. Lord, help me. Then we can look around and see how God is at work. The things that He has given to us this day, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it is God's will. And we can embrace it as we trust in Him. He gives us this grace in humility. And as our first reading from the book of Sirach told us, it's that prayer of the lowly that pierces the clouds, that arrives at the throne of God immediately. Because He's so close to us in our struggle. In that humility, He comes to us. He knows that suffering. We might not feel His presence with us, and that's why that act of faith is so important. Because then and there, and all of you know it, when we lean into our faith, that's when we grow. None of us wants to suffer, right? We look for all the ways we can avoid it. But it's when we embrace it that we draw near to the crucified Christ. Our lives are conformed to His more and more. And so this week, as we begin, let us every day begin from that posture, bowing our heads, asking the Lord's mercy, so that little by little we can be conformed to Him, so that in our humility we can let others know who they are by building them up, responding to them in love, the way the Lord has responded to us.